You work 55 hours per week. You have 2 jobs. Monday through Friday, you work at a retail store from 8 to 1, 25 hours per week. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights, plus Sunday afternoon, you work at a restaurant, another 30 hours per week. You're working 55 hours per week total. That's more than a standard full-time job. You should be making decent money. You should be getting ahead. But you're not. You're making $28,000 per year before taxes. You have no health insurance from either job because neither one gives you enough hours to qualify. You have no paid time off, no sick days, no retirement benefits. When you get sick, you lose 2 days of pay from both jobs. When your car breaks down and you miss a shift, you lose that pay and risk getting fired. You're working more hours than people with full-time jobs, but you're poorer than them. You're exhausted. You have no life. You can't plan anything because your schedules at both jobs change every week and they don't coordinate with each other. You asked your retail job for more hours so you could quit the restaurant. They said no, they need to keep everyone under 30 hours to avoid paying benefits. You asked the restaurant to make you full-time. Same answer. So you're stuck working 2 part-time jobs, 55 hours per week, making poverty wages, with no benefits and no stability. If you've ever felt like working harder is making you poorer, if you've ever wondered why having 2 jobs doesn't equal security, if you've ever been trapped in the part-time cycle where neither employer will give you enough hours, but together they consume your entire life, this video is for you. Because working 2 jobs doesn't keep you poor by accident. It's a trap built into how modern employers structure work to maximize their profits and minimize your power. Today we're going to break down exactly why the part-time trap exists, how much it's costing you, and what would have to change to escape it. Let me tell you what this feels like, because if you're working multiple part-time jobs, you know this exhaustion. It's Sunday night. You're looking at your schedule for the week. Your retail job posted the schedule Saturday evening, and it's different from what they told you last week. You were supposed to have Tuesday off, but now you're scheduled 9 to 3. Your restaurant job scheduled you Tuesday 5 to close. You can't work both. You text your manager at retail and ask to move the shift. She says no, you're scheduled. If you can't make it, find coverage or you'll get a write-up. You text your restaurant manager and ask to move that shift. He says the same thing, you're stuck. You choose the restaurant shift because it pays more in tips. You call in sick to retail. That's a write-up. 3 write-ups and you're fired. You just used one of your 3 chances because 2 employers refused to coordinate schedules. This is your life every single week. Juggling schedules that change constantly, that conflict constantly, that give you no control over your time. Now let's talk about the money, because this is where the trap becomes clear. You're working 55 hours per week. Your retail job pays $13 per hour. 25 hours per week is $325. The restaurant pays $12 per hour plus tips. 30 hours is $360, plus maybe $150 in tips. Let's say $510 total. Combined, you're making $835 per week. Times 52 weeks, that's $43,420 per year before taxes. After taxes, you take home about $33,000. That's $2,750 per month. But here's the problem. You have no health insurance from either job. You have to buy it on the marketplace. That's $350 per month for a high-deductible plan. You now have $2,400. You have no employer retirement contributions. You have no paid time off. When you're sick for 3 days, you lose $250 from both jobs. When your car breaks down and you miss 2 days, you lose $200. Emergencies cost you more because you have no paid leave buffer. And you're spending more on transportation because you're commuting to 2 jobs in different locations. That's an extra $100 per month in gas and car wear. You're down to $2,300. You have no predictability. Some weeks they give you 55 hours total. Some weeks they give you 40 because they cut your hours at both jobs. Your income varies by $300 to $400 per month, making budgeting impossible. Now let's compare this to someone working one full-time job at $15 per hour. 40 hours per week, 52 weeks. That's $31,200 before taxes, about $24,000 after taxes. That's $2,000 per month, $550 less than you're taking home. But they have employer health insurance. They pay $100 per month instead of $350. They just saved $250. They have paid time off, 10 days per year. When they're sick, they don't lose pay. That's worth about $600 per year, $50 per month. They have employer 401k match, 3%. That's about $60 per month going into retirement. They have schedule predictability. They know they work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. They can plan their life. They can take a second job or a side gig in the evenings if they want, because their main job is stable. They can go to school at night because they know their schedule. They have one boss, one set of expectations, one workplace culture to navigate. Their net effective income, after accounting for benefits and stability, is higher than yours, even though you're working 15 more hours per week. You're working 55 hours to be barely better off than someone working 40. And you're more vulnerable, more stressed, more exhausted, with less ability to improve your situation. Here's the math on what working 2 part-time jobs instead of 1 full-time job costs you. Let's use the example above. You're making $43,000 gross from 2 jobs, taking home $33,000. After health insurance costs, you're effectively at $38,000 gross, $28,700 net. The full-time worker making $31,000 gross, $24,000 net, plus employer-covered benefits worth about $5,000 per year in health insurance, retirement contributions, and paid time off, has an effective compensation of $36,000. You're making $43,000 gross and getting $38,000 in effective value. They're making $31,000 gross and getting $36,000 in effective value. You're working 37% more hours, 55 versus 40, to get 5% more effective value. That's a terrible deal, but it gets worse because of the hidden costs. You're commuting to 2 jobs. That's time. Let's say each job is a 20-minute commute. You're commuting to job 1, working, coming home. Then commuting to job 2, working, coming home. That's 80 minutes of commuting on days you work both jobs versus 40 minutes for the full-time worker going to 1 job. Over a week, that's an extra 4 to 6 hours of unpaid time. If we value your time at your wage rate, that's an extra $50 to $75 per week in time costs. Over a year, that's $2,600 to $3,900 in lost time. Now your effective earnings are even lower. There's also the opportunity cost. The full-time worker gets home at 5:30. They have their evenings free. They can go to school, learn a new skill, work a side gig, spend time with family, rest. You get home at 11 p.m. from the restaurant shift. You're exhausted. You have to be at retail at 8 the next morning. You have no time for anything that would improve your situation. You can't go to school. You can't learn new skills. You can't network. You can't job search effectively. You're trapped in a cycle of work that prevents you from escaping the cycle. The full-time worker has mobility. You don't. Over 5 years, the full-time worker might get promoted, or switch to a better job, or complete a certification that increases their earning power. You're stuck in the same 2 part-time jobs, or you switch to 2 different part-time jobs, but you're still trapped in the same structure. The earnings gap widens over time. Here's the economic concept: the part-time trap and benefits cliff. The part-time trap is when employers keep workers below the threshold for full-time benefits, usually 30 hours per week, to avoid paying for health insurance, retirement, paid leave, and other benefits that are legally required or standard for full-time employees. This saves the employer money and shifts costs to the worker. You have to buy your own health insurance, which is more expensive than group employer plans. You have no retirement benefits, so you're not building wealth. You have no paid leave, so any disruption costs you money. The employer externalizes these costs to you. They get your labor without paying the full cost of employing you. The benefits cliff is when earning slightly more money disqualifies you from government assistance programs, making you worse off overall. If you're making $28,000 per year, you might qualify for Medicaid, SNAP, subsidized childcare. If you get a small raise and make $32,000, you might lose all those benefits, which were worth $6,000 per year. Your net situation got worse even though you're earning more. This creates a trap where you can't afford to earn more, because the loss of benefits outweighs the income gain. Employers exploit this by keeping you in the sweet spot where you need the job but can't get ahead. Let's run the numbers on a benefits cliff scenario. You're making $28,000 per year from 2 part-time jobs. You qualify for Medicaid, so your health care is free. You get SNAP benefits, $200 per month, $2,400 per year. You get subsidized childcare, $300 per month subsidy, $3,600 per year. Total assistance, $7,200 per year. Your effective income is $28,000 salary plus $7,200 benefits, $35,200. Now one of your jobs offers you full-time hours at $15. You'd make $31,200. But full-time means you lose Medicaid. You have to pay $350 per month for health insurance, $4,200 per year. You lose SNAP because your income is too high. You lose subsidized childcare. Your effective income is now $31,200 salary minus $4,200 health insurance, $27,000. You went from $35,200 to $27,000. You lost $8,200 in effective income by getting a raise in full-time hours. The system punishes you for earning more. So you stay part-time, stay on benefits, stay trapped. Now let's talk about why employers do this. Why do companies hire 2 people at 25 hours each instead of 1 person at 50 hours? Because it's cheaper and gives them more control. First, benefits. If they hire 1 full-time worker at 40 hours, they have to provide health insurance, which costs the employer maybe $6,000 per year. They have to provide paid time off, which costs them in coverage and lost productivity. They have to provide retirement matching. They have to comply with full-time employment regulations. Total cost, maybe $10,000 per year in benefits on top of wages. If they hire 2 part-time workers at 25 hours each, they provide 0 benefits. They save $10,000 per worker per year. For a company with 100 employees, that's $1 million saved by keeping everyone part-time. This is why retail, food service, hospitality industries are structured around part-time work. It's a cost-saving strategy that transfers the cost of benefits from the employer to the worker and to the government via public assistance. Second, flexibility. Part-time workers have variable schedules. The employer can schedule you for 30 hours one week and 15 hours the next, depending on demand. If it's slow, they cut your hours and their labor costs drop immediately. If it's busy, they schedule you more. You absorb the risk of business fluctuations. A full-time worker has guaranteed hours. The employer pays them whether it's busy or slow. Part-time workers give employers complete scheduling flexibility at no risk to the employer. All the risk is on you. Third power. Part-time workers are easier to control and harder to organize. You're desperate for hours. You'll accept bad schedules, last-minute changes, unpredictable shifts, because you need the income. You won't complain. You won't organize. You can't afford to. If you push back, they cut your hours. You have no leverage. Full-time workers have more power. They're harder to replace. They might unionize. They might demand better treatment. Part-time workers are disposable. There are always more people desperate for hours. Fourth, legal loopholes. The Affordable Care Act requires employers with 50 or more full-time employees to provide health insurance. Full-time is defined as 30 hours per week. So employers keep everyone at 29 hours or 25 hours. They're exempt from the requirement. They save money and avoid legal obligations. This is intentional. The law created a threshold, and employers structured work to stay below it. Similarly, overtime laws require time and a half pay after 40 hours. By keeping you at 25 or 30 hours, they never pay overtime. If they scheduled you 50 hours at one job, they'd owe you overtime for 10 hours. By splitting you across 2 part-time jobs, they pay straight time for all 55 hours. You work more, they pay less. Fifth, the gigification of work. Companies increasingly use scheduling software that treats workers as widgets to be slotted into shifts based on predicted customer traffic. The software optimizes for minimal labor costs, which means minimal hours per worker, maximum number of workers to pull from, and constant schedule changes to match demand. This is efficient for the company. It's devastating for workers. You can't plan your life. You can't get a second job that coordinates. You can't go to school. You can't have childcare stability. The algorithm doesn't care. It's optimizing for profit, and your life is an externality. Here's why this is systemic and not your fault. In the 1970s and 80s, most jobs were full-time. Employers provided benefits because it was standard and because unions demanded it. Since the 1990s, there's been a massive shift toward part-time, temporary, and contract work. This is called the fishering of employment. Companies have restructured to avoid direct employment relationships. They use part-time workers, temp agencies, contractors, franchises, anything to avoid being the actual employer responsible for benefits and protections. This happened because of deliberate policy choices. Weakening of unions so workers can't collectively demand full-time hours and benefits. Deregulation of labor standards so employers face fewer penalties for misclassifying workers or denying benefits. Tax policy that doesn't penalize companies for using part-time labor. Trade policy that moved manufacturing jobs overseas, leaving service jobs that are easier to keep part-time. All of these choices benefited employers and harmed workers. The result is that the jobs available to people without degrees or specialized skills are increasingly part-time, low-wage, no-benefit positions. You didn't choose to work 2 part-time jobs because you like it. You work 2 part-time jobs because that's what's available. Employers won't give you full-time hours. And even if you find one full-time job, it probably pays the same low wage as the part-time jobs, so you're not much better off. The structure of available work has changed. It's not your personal failure. It's the labor market you're operating in. There's also the racial and gender dimension. Women and people of color are disproportionately in part-time work. Women are more likely to be in part-time jobs because they're also doing unpaid care work at home, and employers assume they don't need full-time hours or careers. This is discrimination dressed up as flexibility. People of color are disproportionately in low-wage service jobs that are structured as part-time. The part-time trap is a mechanism that reinforces gender and racial inequality. It keeps women and people of color in low-wage, unstable work with no benefits and no path to advancement. And because part-time work doesn't provide health insurance, women and workers of color are more likely to be uninsured or reliant on public assistance, which stigmatizes them and justifies paying them less. Let's talk about the health impact, because this is where the part-time trap becomes life-threatening. You're working 55 hours per week at physically demanding jobs. Retail is standing all day, lifting, stocking. Restaurant is running, lifting, heat, stress. You're exhausted. Your body hurts. You develop chronic pain, but you can't see a doctor because you have no health insurance, or your insurance has a $5,000 deductible you can't afford. You work through the pain. It gets worse. Eventually, you're injured or so sick you can't work. You have no paid leave. You lose income from both jobs. You go into medical debt. You can't pay rent. You're evicted. The part-time trap didn't just keep you poor. It destroyed your health and your housing. This is not hypothetical. This is the lived reality of millions of people working multiple part-time jobs. The stress alone is killing people. Chronic stress from financial instability, schedule unpredictability, overwork, and lack of control causes heart disease, diabetes, mental health crises. You're working yourself to death for poverty wages while your employers profit. So what are you supposed to do? Let's start with individual survival strategies, knowing these don't solve the systemic problem. First, if you can, consolidate to one job. Even if it means slightly less money, having one job with predictable hours gives you time and mental space to improve your situation. You can go to school, you can job search, you can rest. 2 jobs might pay more right now, but 1 job gives you mobility. Second, look for employers that offer full-time hours and benefits, even if the hourly wage is the same or slightly lower. The benefits are worth thousands of dollars per year. A $15 full-time job with health insurance and paid leave is better than 2 $13 part-time jobs with no benefits. Total compensation matters more than hourly wage. Third, be strategic about which public benefits you use and how earning more affects them. This is complicated and varies by state, but generally, understand your benefits cliff. Know at what income level you lose Medicaid, SNAP, child care assistance. Sometimes it makes sense to stay below that threshold until you can jump high enough above it that the lost benefits don't matter. It's a terrible system that you have to game, but that's the reality. Fourth, if both your jobs have unpredictable schedules, try to get at least one of them to commit to a consistent schedule. Some cities have predictive scheduling laws that require employers to post schedules in advance and compensate workers for last-minute changes. Know your rights. Push back where you can. Fifth, track your hours and income religiously. Document everything. If you're working enough hours that you should be classified as full-time, or if your employers are coordinating to keep you just under the threshold, you might have a legal claim. This is hard to prove and hard to fight, but documentation is the first step. Sixth, if possible, use your limited free time to build skills that will get you out of part-time work. Free online courses, certifications, anything that makes you more valuable and opens doors to full-time work. This is incredibly hard when you're exhausted, but it's the only individual path out. But here's the reality. Individual strategies are band-aids on a systemic wound. Even if you escape the part-time trap, the trap still exists for millions of others. Real solutions require policy change. First, change the legal definition of full-time to 20 hours per week instead of 30. If employers have to provide benefits at 20 hours, they'll actually give people 40-hour weeks to get value from the benefits cost. Right now, they keep you at 29 to avoid the 30-hour threshold. Move the threshold to 20, and the incentive structure changes. Second, mandate benefits for all workers regardless of hours. If part-time workers get prorated health insurance, retirement contributions, and paid leave based on hours worked, employers lose the incentive to keep people part-time. A 20-hour worker gets half the benefits of a 40-hour worker. Fair and simple. Third, ban variable scheduling or require premium pay for it. If employers want scheduling flexibility, they should pay for it. Time and a half for any shift scheduled with less than 2 weeks' notice. Double time for on-call work. This makes unpredictable scheduling expensive for employers, incentivizing stable schedules for workers. Fourth, close the benefits cliff gradually instead of abruptly. If you earn $1 more, you shouldn't lose $1,000 in benefits. Phase out benefits slowly as income rises, so there's always an incentive to earn more. Fifth, strengthen overtime laws. Any hours over 40 per week should be overtime, regardless of whether it's at one employer or multiple employers. If the system could track your total hours across all jobs and require overtime pay, Employers couldn't exploit the multi-job loophole. Sixth, raise the minimum wage significantly and tie it to inflation and regional cost of living. If the minimum wage was $25 in high-cost cities, even part-time work would pay enough to live on. You wouldn't need two jobs. Seventh, provide universal health care not tied to employment. If health insurance isn't dependent on your employer, employers lose one of their main reasons for keeping you part-time. You'd be covered regardless. This removes a huge leverage point they have over you. Eighth, strengthen unions and make organizing easier. Card check, sectoral bargaining, bans on captive audience meetings. If workers can organize easily, they can demand full-time hours and benefits collectively. Employers can't just say no to one person, but they have to negotiate with a union. Ninth, create a guaranteed income floor or a negative income tax. If everyone has a basic income that covers survival, you're not desperate for any hours you can get. You have the power to say no to bad part-time jobs. Employers would have to compete by offering better hours, better pay, better conditions. 10th, enforce existing labor laws aggressively. Misclassification, wage theft, scheduling violations, denial of legally required benefits. These happen constantly, and companies face minimal consequences. Massive fines and criminal charges for executives who violate labor law would change behavior fast. Here's the truth. Working two jobs keeps you poor because the system is designed to extract maximum labor from you, while paying minimum compensation and providing zero security. Employers split your work across part-time positions to avoid paying benefits, to maintain total scheduling control, to keep you desperate and powerless. The benefits cliff ensures that you can't earn your way out of poverty because government assistance drops off faster than your income rises. The lack of labor protections means you have no recourse when schedules conflict, hours get cut, or you're fired for asking for full-time work. And the fissured labor market means that most available jobs are structured this way. You didn't choose this. This is the economy that was built around you. You deserve full-time work with stable hours, livable wages, and benefits. You deserve to work 40 hours per week, not 55, and to have enough to live on. You deserve predictability so you can plan your life, go to school, spend time with family, rest. None of this is radical. This is what your parents' generation had. Full-time jobs were the norm. Benefits were standard. Schedules were predictable. Unions were strong enough to enforce these things. That economy was dismantled deliberately through policy choices that favored employers over workers. And now you're told to work harder, to hustle, to get a second job if the first one doesn't pay enough. But working two jobs doesn't make you richer. It makes you poorer because you're working more hours for less total compensation, with no time to escape the trap. The part-time trap is a wealth extraction mechanism. You generate profit for two employers. They split the cost of employing you, each paying less than they would for a full-time worker, while you absorb all the costs and risks. You pay for your own health insurance at individual rates instead of group rates. You have no retirement, so you're building zero wealth. You have no paid leave, so every illness or emergency costs you money. You have no schedule stability, so you can't optimize your life. You're paying, in money and in health and in time, for the privilege of working yourself to exhaustion for poverty wages. That's not fair. That's not right. And it's not your fault. Changing this requires seeing it clearly, naming it honestly, and fighting collectively. Join or form a workers' organization. Support unions. Vote for politicians who will strengthen labor protections and close the loopholes employers exploit. Demand full-time hours as a right, not a privilege. Demand benefits for all workers. Demand schedule predictability. Demand that companies pay the full cost of employing you, not externalize costs to you and to taxpayers via public assistance. You're not failing because you're working two jobs. You're trapped because the system is designed to trap you. The only way out is to change the system. And changing the system requires power. Workers have power when they act collectively. Individually, you're replaceable. Collectively, you're essential. The economy doesn't run without you. Remember that. Use it. Fight for the full-time, stable, well-paid work you deserve. Because working 2 jobs shouldn't keep you poor. It should be unnecessary. And making it unnecessary is a choice we can make as a society. We just have to demand it.